Okay, we talked about traveling with Signature Vacations, and they take you out of the way places, but there you can still have a shower and a good bed, I mean, and you're taken care of. But how would you like to really rough it? You know, like go to India and ride on a packed bus through the streets of Bombay. What about getting stuck in a 3-day sandstorm with a nomadic African tribe? I mean, you've really got to be adventurous for this one. And my next guests have done it all, and they have written a fabulous book. I just love this book. It's for wannabe adventure travelers, and if you're going to be one of them, I read this book before you go anywhere. Please welcome the authors of Globe Trotter's Guide, Carl Dolinko and Wayne Schmitz. Not Carol. It's Carol. Carl. This is Carol and Wayne, and how extensively have you traveled?
Well, I've traveled to over 60 countries. I actually set off on a 4-month tour initially when I was 18, and I was gone for 8 years solid. So, yeah, life changed.
And you, sir?
I've been to about 35 countries, but unlike Carol, I seem to go to the same countries over and over again.
Oh, so you have, like, big favorites. What are your favorites?
I would say India by far.
Really?
Yes.
Where in India? It's a big place. Any place in India for you?
Well, I find the south to be a lot more quieter. In the north, that's where you have all the temples, the culture, the history, and the people for the most part. It's very interesting to travel around the north, but when you have to just get away from everything, in the south it's all palm trees, rice paddies, and nice beaches.
And for you, the best is?
Africa. I've been there, yeah. I've been there about 4 times, and there's a different rhythm that happens in Africa. And I mean, aside from the animals and the culture and the dancing and the face masks, the people are just
And you
phenomenal.
can't explain it, and you can't see it in a picture, and you can't understand it, but when you go there, you go, oh, wow. Oh, it's like going to Western Canada and seeing the big sky. I don't care how many people tell you about it, but until you see it, you don't understand how big that sky can be.
You bet.
You have some amazing stories and things and tips in this. Okay, never take a bus in Indonesia. Never. I was like appalled. Tell them why.
Well, you can't really get around from taking buses. For the most part...
I'd walk.
I mean, they do have trains, but still, it just seems that buses are the most popular form of transport. But the thing is that people in a lot of the developing countries, especially the drivers, they have no real concept of what good driving is like. They have no real respect for human life.
I was thinking about the part about throwing up. If they get sick, they don't use bags or the window. They throw up at their feet, and it stays there in the bus until the bus driver gets straw and just puts it over. So, like, if you take a bus, wear shoes.
Or don't sit at the very back of the bus, because a lot of times people just, vomit outside the windows, and if you happen to be at the back of it's fairly disgusting, but you learn these things really quickly.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in here that you need to know. You cover a lot about customs in countries, if you get sick. I mean, you really cover, if you read this book and we're going off on a 4-month to 8-year adventure, you would be totally safe and taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
Who is this?
This is a woman that I met actually in Nepal, and I was watching a cremation, and she just happened to be one of the women that was sitting there. She's probably 30 years old. No, I'm just kidding. She's quite
actually,
a bit older.
She might only be 50.
Yeah, absolutely. Women overseas, they age very quickly because they work twice as hard as anybody else.
And they're in the sun all the time, and they don't have much water. They don't have much anything.
No, of course.
You have given us some tips here on what to do before you travel, and these are really wise points to keep in mind.
Yeah, we'd like to say be a participant in the culture rather than just going and allowing yourself to be led through these countries. Go and talk to people and learn a bit of the language and make an effort, and you'll gain so much more out of this. You'll have that much more of an enjoyable experience to take with you.
Familiarize yourself with customs, prices, and activities before you commit. What does that mean?
Most definitely. I think that's probably one of the most important things. Yeah. People, when they arrive in a location, a lot of times they just hit the street and right away they're buying things and they're doing and making arrangements for tours and things. But the best thing to do is spend a couple days familiarizing yourself, talking to other people.
Slow down when you get there.
You bet.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then do it.
Because you find that you always make your biggest mistakes because you don't have the proper information.
Gee, there was one great tip you had about taking your passport and you You did a photostat of it, and every time you came to a border, instead of having to go in your money belt, because that's where you keep your passport, because it's next to you, you don't lose that thing. You photostated it, laminated it, and you used that.
Yeah, and a lot of
That's
countries,
brilliant.
it's actually kind of sort of somehow a little bit illegal because you're not supposed to make another copy of it. But what you do is I did that specifically so that I wouldn't have to go through these military check posts and bare my belly and open up my whole money belt and expose myself.
What country are we in?
This is Africa. This is a lot of countries around the world. Just you drive through the streets and there's military check posts that you have to go through and show ID.
Okay, we just did familiarize yourself with customs, prices, and activities. Now consider the impact you have and the impression you leave. A lot of people never think of that.
Yeah, well, essentially, when you leave Canada, you are a representation and a representative of this country. So you want to keep your manners. You want to keep yourself respectful because the impression that you're giving others is what they're going to be left with of Canadians.
Do you wear your little Canadian emblem somewhere? Because I found that we were really well accepted, better than the Americans.
Well,
I did a lot of places, there's a lot of...
It shouldn't be like that, but it really does make a difference.
Yeah. And in fact, Canadians are great because they give these tiny little Canadian flag pins, and I've been in the most remote places in the world, and you know, these little kids come up to you and they have these tiny little Canadian pins, and you're thinking, oh my God, there's been Canadians here. So it's great to give them away.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with tips and incredible stories from the authors of the Globe Trotter's Guide. The authors of the Globe Trotter's Guide. We have a couple more tips for you if you're traveling. First, be a participant, familiarize yourself with customs, prices, and activities before you commit. Consider the impact you have and the impression you leave, and then be open to spontaneity.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, again, like me, I set off for a 4-month trip, and it turned into 8 years. Now,
that is spontaneous.
Well, that was spontaneous. But, I mean, it can certainly lead you. I mean, if you're going to the market and you've got this strict idea, then, you know, be open to somebody saying, hey, why don't you go down this street? Well, sure. Or changing your tour plans. Don't always stick directly to your itinerary. Be open enough to experience other things that you might not have thought of.
That's why they call it independent travel. Because 1 minute you're going one direction. Matter of fact, when I met Carol, I was on my way to Africa the first time we met.
Where did you meet?
In an airport boarding lounge.
The first time I ever traveled, actually, and overseas on my own, and was lucky enough to sit by Wayne, and for 9 hours on a flight to Amsterdam, he filled me in into the do's and don'ts of travel.
Travel makes storytellers of us all.
That's wild. So you two have been friends ever since?
More or less. We only saw each other probably twice. After that initial time, like 4 years later at my mom's, and then about 5 years later when we started working on the book.
Ah, okay. Last tip is don't leave your manners at home.
And again, that's very, very important because, again, you are a representative of the West. And if these people have never encountered people from the West, if they've only seen the Michael Jacksons and Madonnas, that's the only impression they have. So by meeting a Western person, if you are polite, if you are respectful, it makes the locals want to meet more foreigners.
If you're a woman, where should you beware of traveling by yourself?
Pretty well everywhere, actually. I mean, in most cases, you have to keep your eyes in the back of your head, and you have to walk with some sense of confidence and self-assuredness that you're not going to get in trouble. You know where you're going, and if you walk around like you know where you want to be, you're not going to get problems. And if stuff does start to happen, talk to one of the local women, and they'll be a great assistance to you. It's better to get some, local woman yelling at a guy that's harassing you than you doing it and the guy not understanding you.
Have you ever had a real problem?
I've had a couple incidents that have, certainly made me open my eyes a little bit more. But after those, I was fine, again, because I walk with that confidence.
Just remember when we were in Romania, and I was working on Third World Data, and we went for dinner, and there was 10 of us. And a fight broke out at that end of the restaurant, and one of the men came down, and the guy at this table stood up, and he backed into our table, into Mary Lynn's chair across from me, and then they went out, and the whole thing was a setup to steal her purse off the back of her chair.
There you go.
And they got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like, and then we found out afterwards that this was a gang that all worked together. If you're traveling with anything that's valuable and you're sitting down, man, we'd put it on
Wrap it around your leg.
Yeah, you'd wrap it
You bet.
around your foot and stick it on the ground so it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, you keep your valuables with you at all times.
Whenever
Yeah.
anything happens, always question what's going on around you. It seems like opportunity and distraction are the most popular ways to steal things from you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Children are notorious for that sort of thing.
Yeah. When you travel, do you always wear a money belt?
I
Or
do.
Protection belt. Yeah.
I do. In fact, I wear a couple things. I wear a money belt under my clothing. I wear a money pouch around my neck, and then I've got a little purse or something that I'll keep money in. And I actually have even sewn inside pockets inside my pants that I take money out of. So I've got money in different places. So God forbid if something should happen, I can give them my money pouch around my neck. I can reach into my pocket and give them some change. But last resort is to give them my actual money belt.
Hey, listen, because you make that point. Look, if it comes down to you and you're in trouble, give them everything.
Give her everything,
It's all
you bet.
yours. Take it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's just money.
But definitely when it comes to safety and security on the road, there's some points we definitely want to make. And that the first one is that you should limit your look of affluence and your possessions.
Yeah,
Definitely.
leave all the good stuff at home.
bet.
You don't
No
wear
gold
jewelry,
chains,
no
no
gold, no
watches, or
fancy
cheap
watches,
watches.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing is you don't go looking for trouble. By looking for trouble, could be set up for a scam or a con, for example, which usually entail you being an active part in it.
The book is The Globe Trotter's Guide. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Meet the amazing athletes from